Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of The Intentional Career. And this week, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics. Now, one of the questions I get asked the most by my clients, by people who just walk up to me or people who know me is, I need help with interviews. I need to I have an interview. What do I need to do to make sure I get the job? And I get it. Interviews are probably the hardest part to get through. And some people are really good at interviews, and there are a number of secrets I'll share with you about interviews, myths I'll try to bust that will hopefully you'll find really useful. But also, I really want to share something else, which is some truths about interviews that you really need to keep in your mind whenever you go for an interview. And if you do this, it will make a big difference to increasing your odds for getting the interview. So one of the first things you need to think about is how the interviews work. Now, normally what works with interviews is you apply for a job through any number of channels. You could apply for the job through a job board on the internet, the usual ones. You could apply through LinkedIn. You could apply through the company's website directly. You could also, maybe through a friend of a friend or a contact, someone could introduce you. That gets you through the door, and then they want to interview you. So there are many ways that come to getting the interview. Now, that's the good part, because once you've got an interview, the very first thing you need to keep in your mind is this: you are one of the chosen few. Now, about a few weeks ago, I was doing some job hunting, and I spoke to someone who was looking for who was recruiting, and he said, "Femi, I kid you not, I post a job at night sometimes in the middle of the night around 2 a.m. And when I wake up in the morning to check my email, I have about 800 applicants." And that's just from the job board, and that's one job board. So you can imagine there's multiple job boards around. There's 3 or 4 of the big ones, so people apply there. And then people apply through informal routes, through connections or relationships, and then people apply directly. So very easily, a recruiter or a hiring manager can be looking at close to 1,000 applicants for a job. So the very fact that they've invited you for an interview is a big W. So the first thing I want you to do in this process, or to remember from this, is the moment you get invited for an interview for a job, always look at this as a positive, because you've been selected. There's something about your CV or your resume that stands out. There's something about you that means someone has gone, he can do the job. Because there's a popular saying, when you get an interview, you've got the job. What you've got to do now is come and talk yourself out of it. And what they're trying to say is the fact that they've selected you means they think this person is a good match. Now come and prove to us why you should be the one we take, or come and give us a reason to discount you from the list. So the first thing I want you to take from the interview, once you get invited for an interview, is take that as a massive win. That yes, I've been selected for this job, and that means someone thinks I'm good enough, I can do it. And whatever happens after this, whether you get it or not, use that as a confidence booster to move forward as you look forward for more jobs. Okay? Now, the second thing is this. Now, interviews is really the simplest way to think about this is it is an organized conversation. It's a meeting or a conversation, a chat that's organized. So you always have to think of it as you're going in there to sell yourself, but in a structured manner. Now, I was on Twitter, as I do recently, doing some research typically, and I saw a very interesting comment. A lady said someone invited her for an interview, and they told her it was just a casual interview, that she should just turn up. She didn't do any preparation because she thought it was a casual chat, get to know you. She went in there, and the interview ended up becoming quite formal, and they started really digging into questions, and she struggled. And the lesson is this. I tell this to people as well. When you are going for an interview, always prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So I've gone for a number of interviews where people tell me, Oh, just into casual interview. You don't even have to dress up. Guess what? I still dress up. At the very least, I'll wear nice trousers, shirt, a blazer, and I may not wear a tie, but sometimes I actually wear a tie. I remember my very first job, I wore a tie, went for the interview, and they said, it's casual. You should look at the rest of us. We're interviewing you. We're not dressed smart. Why are you dressed smart? And I just said, look, I am not taking any chances. If you're going to disqualify me, fine. Disqualify me for overdressing. But you're never going to disqualify me for wearing the wrong thing. Because obviously you go casual and you wear a t-shirt that is just suggestive or says the wrong thing, and already they start thinking the wrong thoughts about you and you can lose the job. So always do extra. Always do more than you need to for interviews. But the biggest thing you need to remember about an interview is this. Ultimately, you are meeting people. Now, the fact that they've selected you for the job means they think you can do a good job. The question then becomes, will he blend in? Will he fit into the way we work here? Does his personality vibe with our personality, our team culture? Is he teachable? Is she teachable? Does she have the right attitude? Can she blend? Can they work with us? And that's where your first impression is super, super important when you go for an interview. I cannot stress that when you go for interviews, you just absolutely have to remember this. It's when people come into an interview, the first thing they're thinking of is, gosh, would they like me? What do they think of me? Is this the right person? And the very first thing you need to do is set their mind at ease. Just make them feel relaxed. Make the person think, I'm a good guy. I'm a good lady. I'm a good dude. I'm a good girl. Just relax and have a talk with me. So one of the hacks I always do is this. 3 hacks I use to make sure when I go for an interview, I make the person interviewing me feel relaxed. Number 1, I research about the person, about where they've worked in the past, so I have that knowledge, so that when we're doing the interview, I can mention, hey, I see you worked at this place, and I'm quite familiar with that company. And it just ties it together, because in these 3 tips I'm going to give you, what we're trying to do is find common bonds. Human beings are social people. It doesn't matter if it's an interview or you're meeting someone for a drink at a restaurant or a bar. We all thrive and we vibe off connections, relationships. And relationships accelerate more to the forming stage if there is a common link or something that can tie us together. So first question is, how's your day been? And they'll tell you very quickly. So if you go on the interview, they'll introduce themselves, say, it's nice to meet you, I'm excited about this. And you just say, oh yeah, how's your day been? And very quickly, if you say, how's your day been? Almost always they'll end up going, yeah, it's been okay, quite busy. And that just relaxes everyone. So, oh, it's been a busy. Have you been interviewing lots of people? Yeah, lots of interviews. We've been interviewing lots of people. It's useful information because you know there's lots of competition out there, but also you know that they're serious. But it just gives you that vibe. Second thing is, it's a very British thing to do, but it's something that a lot of people could do everywhere, is how far do you live from the office? Have you had to travel far from the office? Oh, no, I'm working from home. And if they're working from home, no, that's good. Is that your work culture? Work from home a lot? Oh, no, we don't work from home. You can come in once a week. Oh, where do you live? And they'll tell you where they live. And again, that just builds relationship, because then you can say where you live as well. And lastly, you can just say, it's for you, you can just talk about yourself a bit more and just say, yeah, I haven't been waiting for long on the call. It's really good, really excited. Hope you guys are doing fine. So it's just icebreakers, just saying things without getting straight into business. So you've got to be really comfortable in your skin to just do this. So I would encourage you to look for ways before the meeting starts to just make everything relaxed. And this works face-to-face as well. If you're in a face-to-face interview and they come to grab you at reception or wherever they need to grab you, and they'll ask normally, have you come from far? Yes, I've come from far. No, I haven't. I live here. How about you? Where do you live? Oh, yes. And just learn to do small talk and build relationships. This is super important and can go a big way to helping you get the job you want. So what am I going to talk to you now? I'm going to talk to you about a number of myths, 5 myths about the job hunting and interview process that a lot of us make mistakes with. Number one, people say it's easy to get a job when you already have one. It's not true. It only becomes the fact that it's more important to you. So when you have one job and someone else interviews you for another job, the reality is you're less desperate, you're more confident, you're more relaxed. When you're in the interview, you can speak in a way that sounds like you're more confident that even if it goes wrong, you're fine because you have a job already. And what that means is that when you answer more authoritatively. So that's one thing. So it's not true that it's easy to get a job when you already have one, but it only becomes more important when it matters to you. So the energy, the desperation is what makes the difference. Number two, interviewers know what they want and what they are looking for, and interviewers can change their mind. Here's the thing. Yes, when they come into an interview, they know what they're looking for. But again, I've said this, we are dealing with people. So the fact that we're dealing with people means that they can come in thinking this is what they need. But when they see your personality, your energy, the answers you give, you can change their mind. And sometimes I've seen people go for interviews, people that I've coached, and even though they didn't get the job they went in for, they tell them there's another job similar to the skills you have that we can recruit you for. So always remember that they can change their mind. They don't know what they want yet. Usually, if they found absolutely what they want, they'll just shut the interview process down and they won't even bother interviewing. They'll say we found a candidate, or we're picking internally. They'll find a reason, whatever it is. Number three, somewhere out there, a job is waiting for me. You're not looking for a job, you're looking for the job. You're looking for the job. So when you go into interviews, try not to take the mindset or the approach or the thoughts that I'll just take any job, even if you will. But you've got to go in there with an energy to make it feel like this job was built for me. I am the perfect fit for this job. So go in there to sell yourself, to say, this is the job for me, and I am the candidate for you. And always look to do it. And a good way to solve this is at the end of an interview, don't be afraid to ask, is there any other question you want to ask, or is there any skill that is really critical to this job to be successful? And more than likely they'll tell you. And that's your chance to close the loop. Any questions you didn't answer properly, or one more chance to sell yourself, to say, that's a skill I really have. I can make a big difference here. I'm passionate about this. I've done this before and I'm ready to go. Another one is this. The best candidate always gets the job. Interviews are more art than science. So interview is not a science. And again, I've said it. It's about people coming together. So there's no science. You can't bump into anyone and know if they're going to be your best friend until you meet them and see that there's chemistry. You can't bump into anyone and know they're going to be your potential mate, your spouse, your husband, your wife. Immediately, sometimes it takes knowing each other. And the same way it is with picking when you're being interviewed or you're interviewing someone. There is no simple, it's not a science. It's more art. So the results may not be logical, or they may not be what you expect. So remember, at the end of the day, it's the person who interviews best in the eyes of the interviewer who gets the job, not the best candidate. And it happens a lot. Companies hire people off of an interview and they realize that's not the person. So some people are not very good at interviewing well, and yet they're very good at the job. But you have to learn the interview skill, because at the end of the day, you can look at all the resumes and you can't pick off a resume. You want to meet someone. And a lot of companies also believe that if I meet you, I can tell if you're someone that can be teachable, who can learn. And that's probably more important sometimes for some companies. And then lastly, it's the longer the interview, the better my chance of success. Now, there is some truth in this, but a longer interview can definitely make you feel good, because it meant the interview went for long. But the thing is, there's just too many variables when it comes to interviews to know what's going to work or not, what's going to be successful. I will say, if the interview goes long, in my experience personally, it usually means I'm giving them the answers they want. and the conversation is going well and it's just flowing well. Because again, time can fly if you're very good at building conversations. Very good at building conversations, time can fly. So I would encourage you to just regularly get into the habit of once in a while, when you meet strangers on a train, on the bus, when you're driving, anywhere, try to build conversations. Because when you go for an interview, it's about strangers very quickly trying to establish a rapport, establish shared values, find out if they can work together, all in the space of an hour. So usually, the more you're better at hitting up conversations and building up rapport with people who you don't know, the better you become at interview. So no, a long interview isn't a guarantee, because a long interview is also a chance for you to say something wrong, but definitely a very short interview is not good as well. So I would say a long interview is usually a good sign, but it's not a guarantee. So these are the few things I think you should take into consideration when you're looking for a job and you're looking for interviews. And I've shared about 5 things you need to think about that should give you assurance that an interview isn't something to be scared of. And it's also a lot of myths I've busted. I've also given you 3 hacks. Follow me on, as usual, on Femi AKINYEMI on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Sign up for my newsletter by clicking on my profile. Get my letter and also check out the podcast on Spotify, all the usual platforms. And I will see you next week.